It's been 14 years since I watched my best friend take his last breath. Even after all this time, there are moments when the memory feels closer than my own reflection. I was 20 then, too young to understand that grief doesn't vanish. It just learns to wait quietly beneath everything you build after it. He and I had been inseparable since childhood. We met when we were 7, two boys who shared the same cracked basketball, the same dreams, the same endless summers. He was the kindest person I'd ever known, the sort of person whose heart was always open, even to those who didn't deserve it. Losing him didn't just take away a friend. It took away the version of me that still believed in safety. I never talk about the way he died, not because I've forgotten, but because remembering it means feeling it again. He died in my arms, and there are no words that can explain what it's like to hold someone you love while the world takes them back. For months afterward, I couldn't sleep without hearing his voice. I couldn't eat without feeling guilt. I couldn't exist without wondering if I could have done something, anything, to change what happened. When he died, his girlfriend was pregnant. I remember how happy he was when he found out. We were kids pretending to be men, yet he spoke about fatherhood like it was the greatest adventure he'd ever get to have. He promised he'd be the kind of dad he never had. And when he told me about it, he said, "I know I'll be okay. You'll be there to help me figure it out." But I never got the chance. After the funeral, everything fell apart. I tried to stay in touch with his girlfriend, but I was barely surviving myself. She was alone, grieving, and expecting. I wanted to be there, but I couldn't even face my own reflection. By the time their son was born, I had already begun to disappear. Not long after, she took her own life. I don't know what broke her more, grief, exhaustion, or loneliness, but when I heard what happened, it was like losing him all over again. For weeks, I didn't leave my apartment. I stopped answering calls. I started drinking to numb the noise. The thought of ending it all came quietly, not as a scream, but as a whisper that made too much sense. What kept me alive was the same thing that destroyed me: memory. The memory of his laughter, his kindness, the way he always found light in darkness. He wouldn't have wanted me to go too. So I left everything behind and moved to another state. I didn't tell anyone where I went. I just needed to stop being the person who watched him die. For years, I didn't look back. I built a new life, piece by piece, quietly. I found love, got married, had 2 daughters. I learned how to live again without the constant ache. I never told my wife about him. I never told her what happened, or that somewhere out there was a child who carried his blood. Some truths feel too heavy to bring into new beginnings. And then, a few weeks ago, my past found me. I opened my email one evening and there it was, his name, or at least part of it. The subject line simply said, "Hello." At first, I thought it was spam, but when I opened it, the first line made my heart stop. "Hi, you don't know me, but my name is Daniel. I think you are my dad's best friend." The rest of the email blurred as I read. He explained how he found me through LinkedIn. He said his grandmother had passed away recently, and in a box she left behind. There were old photos, pictures of 2 boys growing up together, smiling like the world belonged to them. Pictures of me and his father. He said there was also a letter his dad had written before he was born. In it, his father talked about how excited he was to be a dad, how he wanted to be better than his own father, how he knew he'd never be alone because he'd always have me by his side. Daniel said he wanted to meet. He wanted to hear about his dad, to know what kind of man he was. He said he didn't have many good memories of family, that foster care had been rough, that he just wanted to understand where he came from. He even left his number and his address as if to say, "I'm real." I read that email at least 50 times. Every word was both a gift and a wound. I looked him up on Instagram, and when I saw his face, my heart broke all over again. He was his father's reflection, the same blonde hair, the same blue eyes. even the same dimple when he smiled. It was like looking at a ghost that didn't know it was one. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how. For years, I'd convinced myself I'd moved on, that I'd buried the past deep enough. But grief doesn't die. It waits. And when I saw that boy's face, it woke up everything I'd tried to forget. I didn't tell my wife. How could I? How do you explain that a 14-year-old boy just reopened the wound you've spent half your life trying to heal? How do you tell the woman you love that the most important person you ever lost has come back in the form of his son? Part of me wants to go to him, to drive to that town, to tell him stories of his father, how kind he was, how he could make anyone laugh, how proud he'd have been. I imagine sitting across from him, seeing those familiar eyes, and finally giving that boy the piece of his story he's been missing. But another part of me is terrified, because I know that if I go back, I'll have to face the version of myself I buried when I left. The one who couldn't save his best friend. The one who wanted to disappear. I've built a life around stability, around being a father, a husband, someone who's finally okay. I don't know if I'm strong enough to watch that life crumble under the weight of a single memory. I keep thinking about what my friend would have wanted. He always believed people could find their way back to each other, no matter how lost they became. Maybe this is his way of proving he was right. Maybe Daniel finding me isn't coincidence. Maybe it's a message. Every night since that email, I've dreamed of my best friend. Not as he was when he died, but as he was when we were young, alive, full of laughter, telling me that life doesn't end where pain begins. And I wake up wondering if the reason Daniel looks so much like him is because the universe isn't done writing his story yet. Maybe I owe it to him to finish it properly. Maybe healing isn't about staying away from what hurt you. Maybe it's about finally walking toward it and realizing you've survived. I haven't responded to Daniel yet. I still don't know what I'll say. But I think about him every day, the boy who carries his father's face, the one who unknowingly holds the power to give both of us peace. If I could tell him anything, it would be this, that his father was the best person I ever knew, that he was loved, that he wasn't alone when he left, that I held him until the end, and that somehow, through all of this, he's still here, in him. Maybe tomorrow I'll find the courage to reply. Maybe not. But one day soon, I know I will, because the past only hurts when it's waiting to be answered. And this time, I don't want to leave it unread.